Well, I don't know what time it is for y'all, but for me, it's pretty late at night, and I'm exhausted because I've been working on a huge project, which y'all will be hearing about at some point soon after I've finished talking to lawyers and accountants and consultants and all the rest. But for now, it's time for me to rest. And what better way to rest than to watch a good horror movie? The time is once again upon us in which I'm going to open up this month's horror packs. That is the DVD and Blu-ray horror packs for April of 2023. For those of you who might not know, I say this every time, but I suspect there could be somebody who doesn't know. HorrorPack is the horror movie subscription service. Every month you have a DVD option or a Blu-ray option, and every month they send you 4 brand new horror movies. If you get the Blu-ray option, you also get a HorrorPack exclusive. As you can see, I get both of them, and one of the things I do here on this channel, one of the many things I do, is to open them up and discuss whatever I've got. And so that's what we're doing today. Let's go ahead and dive right in. While I open these up, let me just remind you, if any of these movies catch your interest, I'll have purchase links down in the What's It so you can get a copy for yourself and support my work here on this channel at the very same time. You can also just find out more about the movies, find out more about my projects, all those kinds of things. Here's pack number 1. And as I open up pack number 2, let me also remind you to do all those YouTube things. Pardon me for bumping you, Dr. McCoy. That means like this video, share it with a friend, leave me a comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, all those kinds of things that help me grow this channel so that I can, hopefully make some money that will pay for that project I was talking about at the beginning of this video. And here comes pack number 2. Anyway, I do appreciate all those YouTube-y things, but what we're really about today is these movies, so let's dig right in. And we begin, as always, with the DVD horror pack, so let's see what we have first. First up, we have a film called Camp Murder. We have a masked, machete-wielding villain of some sort on the cover. This is a movie I'm unfamiliar with, but just looking at the cover art, I think I know what we're in for. This looks very much like a Jason Voorhees kind of a character and a Friday the 13th slasher kind of a movie. But just to see if I'm right, let's go ahead and read the description. The back of the DVD says, "No more happy campers. Tommy Heller has been locked away in a mental institution for the past 25 years after committing the Camp Murder Massacre." So, slasher sort of setup so far. Carrying on, it says, "When his careless orderly lets him escape from the care of Dr. Lewis, he returns to the camp to continue his murder spree. A group of unsuspecting campers, Tina and stoner pals Fred and Jay, are stalked by the machete-wielding killer. During this slasher classic, fame-crazed novelist Katie Witt, who will stop at nothing to get her story, shows up at camp, and Dr. Lewis is hot on Tommy's trail. Can Dr. Lewis get to Katie before Tommy does? There are many questions to be answered in this action-packed modern-day slasher classic." So, modern day and classic don't necessarily go together, so they might be tooting their own horn a little too much. And, of course, naming the character Dr. Lewis instead of Dr. Loomis is a clear reference to Halloween. But you know what? Despite perhaps not being all that original, despite sounding very much like, frankly, every other slasher in the world, I still like that plot. I still like that story. I still like those movies. So hopefully it's got some good kills. Hopefully it's aware of what it is and manages to give us just a good old-fashioned slasher of a good time. So, looking forward to trying Camp Murder. Next up, we have another film I'm unfamiliar with called They Reach. The tagline on the front says, "First you hear them, then you see them, then they reach." And the description on the back of this one says, "Curiosity kills. 13-year-old Jessica Daniels accidentally unleashes a demon from a reel-to-reel player, which also happens to be a doorway to the dark side. She musters her science fair winning brainpower and recruits her two best friends to battle the beast and send it back to hell before more souls are taken in the small town of Clarkston. This is another one that is very familiar sounding. We've all seen movies in which some kids accidentally summon a demon. The fact that it's a reel-to-reel player is a little bit more original, a little bit different, but still kind of sounds like the kinds of gimmicks that several other films have used. But like I said with the other one, even though we've seen something that sounds very much like this movie before, I still like that movie. And so this one sounds a bit more like a horror comedy rather than just a horror movie. It doesn't say horror comedy, so I don't know 100% for sure, but it just sort of has that feeling to it. I like horror comedy as well, so looking forward to trying this one. They reach just as much as the other one. And then we have our third entry, a film called Last of the Grads. Tagline here says, "Senior Bash will be a killer party." And the back says, "Welcome to your last day." Maybe a sort of double meaning there. Last day of school, last day of life. Probably both, given that this is a horror movie. Let's see what else it says. It says, "A class of graduating high school seniors nearing the crossroads of their lives celebrate their last night together at the annual school lock-in. They never could have guessed that they were about to encounter the harbinger of death, the legendary coast-to-coast killer." So we have another slasher. We've got some seniors locked in at a school, and a slasher also present on the premises with them. I think we know where it leads, and it leads to the kind of thing that we all like to watch. So I'm looking forward to trying this one as well. That's Last of the Grads. And finally, for the DVD pack, we have a film called Rage of the Mummy. The tagline says, "Vengeance is reborn." We see a mummy on the front, and the back says, "Defy the curse, die first." A group of occultists steal 13 sacred relics from the tomb of Prince Horus Khan in order to create their own supernatural powers. Now, the 3,000-year-old mummy prince must hunt down the stolen relics while bringing deadly vengeance upon the grave robbers. Sounds like a lot of fun as well. And once again, fairly familiar setup. We've got grave robbers taking something from an ancient Egyptian tomb, and the mummy rises from the dead to enact a curse or to seek vengeance or to restore the property that's rightfully his, or some variation on that theme. Once again, it's a kind of story we've seen before, but once again, I still like to watch those kinds of stories. So it seems like we've got another winner here with Rage of the Mummy. And that's actually nice with the DVD pack because I don't know any of these films. I'm unfamiliar with all of them. They're all new to me. I don't know whether they're good or bad. I'm looking forward to trying all of them. And that's one of the things I really like about HorrorPack, because though I sometimes get a duplicate of something I already had, and a little bit more frequently I get one that maybe I didn't have a copy of but had already seen, but the vast majority of what they send me I haven't seen before. Sometimes I haven't even heard of them. And so part of the reason I keep up my subscription is they're constantly bringing me new stuff that I might not have found out about otherwise. And I love that because usually, at least most of them are pretty good. Which brings us to the Blu-ray pack. Let's dig right into that one and see what we have in the Blu-rays. First up, we have a film called Proxy. It says it's Zach Parker's Proxy, and the tagline says, "Motherhood can be its own affliction." This is another one I'm unfamiliar with, so far we're 5 for 5. It sounds like a evil baby sort of a movie, and in fact this quote on the front from the Los Angeles Times calls it a worthy successor to Rosemary's Baby, so presumably we are indeed dealing with an evil or demonic sort of baby or pregnancy gone wrong kind of a movie, which I've seen a few lately that didn't necessarily work for me as well as I'd hoped, but in general I think that's fertile ground for a horror movie, and a lot of these kind of evil baby movies end up working really well. Like I said, I'm not familiar with this one, so let's read the description on the back. Which says, in the last month of her pregnancy, Esther Woodhouse is savagely beaten in an alleyway by an unknown assailant and loses her baby. To aid in her recovery, she attends a support group for grieving parents, where she meets Melanie, who claims her son and husband were killed by a drunk driver. Esther and Melanie develop a friendship, but soon it becomes clear that both are harboring much darker secrets than they initially let on. And when both their lives are transformed by another shocking act of violence, they find that recovery may be impossible. With wildly unpredictable twists and turns, Proxy is a fascinating, unnerving, and endlessly unpredictable psychological thriller. So I actually don't know if this is, in fact, a demonic baby kind of a movie now that I read the description. It sounds like perhaps its reference to Rosemary's Baby is not in the supernatural element, but in the psychological thriller surrounding pregnancy and motherhood. But that is part of what makes the evil baby movies so effective, is pregnancy and motherhood, parenthood in general, can be a frightening sort of thing. So it seems like this has a lot of promise. The description gives me enough to sort of whet my appetite and give me a lot to look forward to, but it doesn't tell me too much, and that's the way I like it, so I'm looking forward to finding out what happens in Proxy. Next up, we have a film called To Your Last Death, rather than To Your Last Breath, of course. Another one I'm unfamiliar with. This has been a really good month so far. We'll have to see if we can keep that trend going. But for now, the description on the back of this one says, after emerging as the sole survivor in a deadly revenge game set up by her father to punish his children, Miriam receives an offer from a supernatural entity to go back in time and try again. Now Miriam must survive both her father's bloodlust and the Game Master's ever-changing rules to save her siblings as she relives the worst night of her life. That's an interesting one. I don't think I have ever seen quite this setup before. Of course, we've seen time travel movies, and it's always sort of horrific to think about the kinds of things that we could change if we travel through time. This idea of a supernatural game master, we've seen that before. That's familiar, sort of reminiscent of the idea of the djinn and wishes gone wrong and rules changing, that sort of thing. And of course, we've seen horrible fathers punishing children, and we've seen those kinds of things as well. But I don't recall ever seeing a film that combines all of those elements into one. Sounds quite intriguing. The artwork on the back makes it look like this may be an animated feature, because it's all animated characters on the back rather than screenshots from a live action movie. However, the casting is quite impressive. We've got Marina Baccarin, Ray Wise, Danny Lennon, Bill Moseley, and William Shatner. So certainly an all-star cast. Once again, I'm really looking forward to trying this one. It sounds like a blast, and the back shows that it's won all kinds of different awards, so presumably somebody liked it, and I have a feeling I probably will too, so looking forward to this one as well. That brings us to a film called Trapped. This one, again, impressive cast. Charlize Theron, Courtney Love, Stuart Townsend, and Kevin Bacon, but a film that I'm not familiar with. So let's go ahead and read the description. It says, it was the perfect plan until she refused to be the perfect victim. From the producer of Thelma and Louise comes a white-knuckle, edge-of-your-seat thriller starring Academy Award winner Charlize Theron, Courtney Love, Stuart Townsend, and Kevin Bacon, as I just said. When their daughter is taken for ransom by a gang of serial kidnappers, a young doctor and his wife find themselves held hostage while a 24-hour plan to extort their money is set into motion. With time running out and the health of their asthmatic daughter at serious risk, they find themselves in a race against the clock as the perfect crime begins spiraling towards an unthinkable, terrifying, and deadly conclusion. And so this one sounds a lot more like maybe an action thriller, maybe a psychological thriller, maybe not what we normally think of as a horror movie, but that line between thriller and horror is I don't know if I want to say it's a thin line or if I want to say it's a fuzzy line, but let's just say that the definitions are hard to separate. There's certainly some overlap, and we could argue about what constitutes thriller versus horror. We could argue about whether there's even a difference at all. Either way, this sounds like an intriguing film, very different from the rest of what I've got so far, and once again, though I'm unfamiliar with it, I'm looking forward to popping it in and watching it. All of which brings us to our final movie, which must be the HorrorPack exclusive. Let's have a look here. It says it's exclusive number 82. It's called 73 Minutes, and I notice we have a sticker on here that says this is a signed copy. In fact, if I look at the back, right there is a signature from Lou Simone, director. So it's signed by the director. I've mentioned before I collect primarily autographed books, but that's just because I know more authors than filmmakers. I have started building a collection of autographed films as well, so hopefully it's a good one. Again, it's another one I don't know, but regardless, this will fit right in with my collection, not only of the HorrorPack exclusives, but of signed movies. I do like getting the autographed copy, so this is a winner already. But because it is a film I'm unfamiliar with, let's go ahead and read the description. The back of this one says, "You're telling me I have 73 minutes to get there." That's a quote. And then the description carries on to say, "Monica is driving home after an intimate encounter when she gets a call from a private number. The anonymous caller threatens her daughter's life if she doesn't deliver a client file to him. He sends her coordinates to a location 73 minutes away and warns her not to deviate from the GPS instructions or call the police. Now she has 73 minutes to figure out what the caller wants with the file. She enlists the help of her lover to solve the mystery in order to save her daughter, but as they get closer to figuring out the identity of the caller, they realize that all their lives are in peril." So I like this one. We've got the race against the clock, we've got the family in danger, we've got the mysterious caller, all of those elements working together to produce a film that I really hope, and it certainly sounds like, should be a good one. And in fact, as you know if you watch some of my older videos in which I actually review all the HorrorPack movies, I tend, not 100% of the time, but the vast majority of the time, to really like the HorrorPack exclusives. I tend to find them at least good, often great. Hopefully this one does not disappoint. That's called 73 Minutes. It's a signed copy. I'm all kinds of excited. And so there we have it. 8 wonderful new movies, and we are 8 for 8 this month in terms of movies that I haven't seen, most of which I haven't even heard of. I've got a lot of watching to do. I am looking forward to all of them. Like I've said before, I've said a couple of times, I tend not to be disappointed with many of the HorrorPack movies, so I can guarantee at least most of these are going to be good. But now, as I said, I am exhausted. I'm about to collapse, so I'm going to go pour myself an adult beverage and pop in one of these movies. Until next time then, as always, take care and stay scared.